Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, here with my favorite Sunday afternoon nap buddy, Andrew David Needham.
There is nothing quite like a Sunday afternoon nap.
This is true, but as we are quickly discovering, the after Sunday afternoon nap hangover is real. We're a little slow.
This will either be a little slow or maybe it'll be the most real and raw.
Yeah, because we're a little cranky.
Speak for yourself, Needham.
I think we can both acknowledge we're a little cranky.
Well,
A little bit.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's fine. It's real life. This is what we're here for.
For the 5 people that watch on YouTube, they can see that we're in a new space.
Yes, which is going to be awesome, but it's probably throwing us off a little too, because this is our first time recording it. Everything feels a little different.
Yeah, we're going to stay in this room. The plan is to stay in this room for a while for recording, but I do have some plans and ideas on how to continue to make it even better. So we'll call this Studio 2.0. And there's still going to be more improvements.
Just so we're clear, we don't have like an unlimited amount of spare rooms to be bopping to. So.
We have moved over to the East Wing.
Oh, gosh. If we move again, y'all going to see us in the bathroom with like the backdrop.
Maybe the acoustics would be good.
Yeah, who knows?
That was one of my projects this weekend was a little refresh.
I know. It's amazing what
bathroom.
A coat of paint and a new mirror. It was amazing. It looks like a whole new room.
I never appreciated the difference between cheap paint and good paint, but I'm fortunate to have a brother who part of his trade is that he works in paint, and so he hooks me up with some high quality Sherwin-Williams. Shout out, not a sponsor yet. Their super paint is super paint. It's amazing.
It really is. The colors are so nice too. I feel like sometimes if you go to the store and you try and cheap out on the paint, then the swatch, like the color you think you're picking.
5 layers later.
Yeah, what it looks like is not the same thing. So, no, good job.
That was fun. It was a good one.
Yeah. What else?
Well, you are picking up another hobby, like a adventurous spirit that you are.
It's a new sport.
I
think, yeah, because I'm in my 40s now.
So shuffleboard, is it? Or?
Pickleball was the first thing that was maybe suggested based on my age.
I feel that because I feel like I'm at the age where I feel like a week doesn't go by where someone doesn't ask me if I play pickleball or golf.
Yes.
Which I've done both, but I don't own the gear. I could see why people like them, though.
Yeah. No, I'm sure those would be fun, but, along with my personality is not necessarily liking to choose the thing that is the obvious choice. And so a few weeks ago, I got asked about would I consider competing in powerlifting, like training and competing. And my brain, my 41-year-old brain was like, that sounds like a good 40-something hobby. Yeah. Let's do it.
I've had shoulder surgery, birthed 2 children, and lived 4 decades.
That's right.
It's about time that I took on a...
Let's just finish her off. let's just wrap this up all at once. So yeah, I've been training for a few weeks now, and stay tuned to actual competition date. I got a lot to learn.
What's your strongest lift?
My strongest lift is probably my deadlift. But I mean, all of them have work. And then there's the side of like when you actually compete, there's the technical side of things that it's more than just moving the weight. You have to understand the cues and all the things. So that's what I'm going to be learning in these upcoming months. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be my sport for my 40s, and then we'll have to pick something new for my 50s, maybe like skydiving or something.
Skydiving, that's not a sport. It's kind of pass-fail.
True. Yeah, I'll have to find something.
I don't think you would skydive.
No, I wouldn't actually. Hate heights. Not a fan.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if I hate falling. So, yeah, not interested.
It's always the landing. That's the...
yeah, hopefully if you're doing skydiving.
That's the pass-fail part.
Right?
You will land. It's a matter of...
How hard?
To do it
How
again.
fast?
A failed lift is a little different than a failed skydive.
Yeah, that's true. You got spotters, all the things.
Yeah.
But... Yeah, and with a deadlift, I mean, you're pulling it off the floor. So if you fail it, it's just staying on the floor. It's fine.
What are some of your other hobbies in this season? Do you have any other hobbies?
Probably not. Probably Weightlifting, if the weather was nicer, hiking is something that I love, but I haven't gotten the gear for winter hiking, so we haven't gotten into that as much.
I got out skiing for the first time recently, which was great. And it just our schedules have been hard to kind of find those days this year. So we'll get you out there. I was pulling out all my ski gear and I'm like, do I want to do this? And then I get out on the mountain. It was a beautiful day and I was with a friend and I'm like, this is so great.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's the haul to
The
get
starting is the hard part of finding the windows to do it. So yeah, you have a podcasting habit too.
there. I do. Oh yeah, I have a podcast.
We don't actually get paid for this. I don't know if you know that or not, but
True.
we're
This
just
is
trying
a
to
hobby.
make So today we're actually going into another listener question.
Oh yeah, we got this from a friend of ours, Jeremy.
Yes.
Right? He sent this, and he was asking the question, "What has been the most beneficial tool?" And he used examples of Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, love language, couples test, etc. In understanding each other better. Did either of you have a that explains everything moment? I feel like that's probably when you met my family. Never mind a test.
This is after you would go to a therapist, then you come back.
That explains everything.
That explains everything. Yeah, the family thing. I don't know. This is a really interesting one to get into because I don't know what your temperament is. Some people love these
Yep.
tools. Other people hate, like, there are people that have like vitriol. And then some of these are like well-respected business tools. Others of them are a little more,
Yeah. I brace myself if I even say the word Enneagram out loud in some circles because people have very, like, all over the map opinions on it. So I don't have strong opinions, honestly, around all of them. And my wiring is not that I'm against, I find them very fascinating, but I am someone that the idea of being boxed in, like, I don't want you to tell me who you think I am. Don't tell me I'm going to play pickleball.
Yeah. I think, and we'll get into this too, but like another area that's adjacent to this for a lot of people, if you're in a work environment, are like job reviews. And I find that some people, like I enjoy getting job reviews, and I've had, mostly good ones. I've had some where I've had things brought to my attention that were uncomfortable, but I'm like, this is free feedback. I've actually also been somebody who I've had a few seasons of life where I've done some interviews like for jobs. And I'm like, oh, this is like free coaching. Like I'm going to learn things through this. So again, I think how you look at personality tests is sort of a personality test in and of itself, which is kind of an interesting thing. So we'll kind of go through a format that we've used for a lot of these different things. We're going to talk about some bad scripts around personality test profiles, etc. And we're drawing a very large circle, which we'll talk about. And then some good scripts, kind of a better way to think about this and to look at these things. But I mean, I'll just say this up front. I don't think any of these things are a replacement for the Holy Spirit, for walking together through conflict, learning about one another, but they can be helpful. So is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think, can I just say that?
Please.
I think I enjoy them better because of the way that you have reframed them for me over the years. I don't think I've always been someone that has been excited about feedback or even like job interviews and things. And I feel like the way that you have framed it for me has helped me walk in with a different perspective and sort of oh, you're right. This, like, some people pay for this kind of coaching and I'm about to get it for free. It's going to hurt, but it can be helpful.
Well, you like a good word picture. I like building a frame. That's like a go-to for me. And today I'm going to build a frame with a word picture. So we're going to this is going to be amazing. So first of all, bad scripts, easy for me to say. Bad scripts, we just want to talk about the two sort of polar opposites, and people fall somewhere on this spectrum. And the first one would be that sort of negative, hyper negative, and I would call that the avoidance posture. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. I hate these kind of tests. Don't send me your link. I don't want to fill out the questions with a timer.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just that fear of anyone speaking something like,
you don't even know me.
Yeah. Like, you don't know me, and being afraid of it, afraid of what it will say. Sometimes I think actually a fear that it might bring to light something that you're just not really ready to face or acknowledge. So
yeah, sometimes we're afraid of the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fear with avoidance, that's a big one. It can be trauma. Like if somebody, again, you can weaponize these tools, and sometimes people have not only boxed you in, but basically like tattooed you with, oh, you're just X.
Yeah. I definitely struggled with that. I would say in my Bible school years when we were doing these kinds of things, the thing that I wrestled with is, especially at that age in life, for whatever reason, I was kind of an extreme of a lot of my personality traits. And so those kind of tests hit me in a way that I felt like you're just saying that this is all that I am.
Mm.
And there's just so much more to me than that.
Yeah.
I was very self-centered.
I don't think so. You were young, and that's part. We'll talk about how you change over time too. But and then that sort of not. We kind of talked about this, but not wanting to look in the mirror, and that not wanting to know what you don't know. Like I don't want to go through the closets. Like I'm not opening that up. That's no.
Oh, yeah. This is like the reason so many of us don't want to go to the doctor when we,
Yeah.
like, if I don't know,
Yeah.
as though it makes it not exist.
Well, it's like I've been kind of dragging my feet on like getting my blood work done for a long time. Nothing changed. Like my blood was the same. It's just I had it evaluated.
Yeah.
And that's a more scientific process than some of these tools, but it's a good
Something
example.
about getting data on it, though, is like, oh, okay.
It's funny, like you've had some experiences recently, like when you go to get your blood taken where like they have trouble getting the needle in.
Oh, yeah. Every time. This last time actually was the first time the lady got it first poke, but she must have really poked me because I had like a legit bruise all around my arm afterwards. But it usually takes them multiple. They're tying off each arm. They're like, well, we got to go somewhere else.
So I had like a childhood trauma where I was the kid scared of the needle that like screamed so that everybody in the clinic like bloody murder and like traumatized my parents. So like I have that memory. And then I had this time, this was not too long ago, it was maybe a decade ago, where I went to get my blood work taken. And I at that point I was like pretty at peace, it's sort of like mind over matter. Like, okay, this is, whatever. I'm just not going to look at it. And this lady comes in and she's like, oh, do you mind if so-and-so takes your blood work? I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. And then I don't remember the order, but somehow I didn't register for me that this was like a student that was learning how to do it. And
I was going to say, are you new? The answer is always no.
No. You want the old late, like the older the person is, like that's like been doing this for a long, long time. Yes, that's what you want. And I felt like I was a pincushion because it was like when they start digging around oh my goodness, that I was like, okay.
Oh, listen, I know these people need to learn. I get it. You gotta, but
Not on me.
They need to learn on somebody who has easier veins than me.
Yeah.
Because honestly, when I go into these places and they tie the little strap around my arm and they start poking, if they don't find a vein
right away
within a couple of pokes, I know this is not going to go well. If they're feeling all around and then I hear, huh, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I had that last time where they like tied off on one arm. And the ladies, this, I could tell she was much more experienced. Like, I've learned my lesson. Couldn't find anything. Ties off on the other arm, tapping around. Can't find anything. Why don't we go back to the first arm? I'm like, oh gosh, Lord, please let this go fine. But she nailed it. First time she didn't go in until she was pretty confident. So that was good. Anyway, that's my little story hour. Back on script.
Slightly off script.
If there was the avoidance side, the other side of this would be the idolization. And I think because for some people, and Jeremy's question kind of ties into this, there can be moments of like, or epiphany for yourself or for your marriage or things like that. And so like, I think when you have that like crack the code moment, you feel like almost like this magic or this superpower in these tools. And so it can be very easy to kind of deify and spiritualize these things, which that is where it can get really kind of messy and not good.
Yeah. And I think this is where you do get the people that tend to be resistant to it, because if they see that in some people, they're sort of it's always the overcorrection thing. We've talked about this before, but overcorrecting where, okay, these people are way over the top in this particular personality test and they speak. It's like they're speaking another language all the time. Like they've just, everything is about this particular.
Oh, that reminds me of this letter number thing.
Oh, yeah. Like it's all over like, oh, or someone says something like, oh, you must be, and they're performing their own tests on other people. And people get scared of it. And so they're like, I'm not going anywhere near any of this stuff because it's too much. So
when we were talking about this ahead of time, you brought up this other one in this area, which is when people will use these things to kind of just excuse who they are.
Yeah. And I say that not even accusatory. I'm sure that I have been guilty of this too, because you have these epiphany moments. They sort of like, oh man, I just realized this thing about myself or about my spouse or whatever. And then you do something
Yeah.
that sort of affirms that strength or weakness, either direction. And you just almost use it as, well, yeah, because, and you basically, the answer is because of this test versus,
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
have a personality profile that allows me to be a jerk.
yeah, like what exactly. I've been saying that about you for just kidding. But no, it's
I
kind
was
of
talking about a hypothetical straw man, not myself, but whatever.
so is I.
You jumped on that.
No, but there is the danger of using these types of tools as an excuse to not actually grow. We are human beings created by God, and we are very complex, and we're not mathematical equations.
Mm,
And also the power of the Holy Spirit, that there could be things deeply rooted in us that feel like, well, this is just who I am, that God's Spirit can absolutely transform things to align with who he's called us to be. And so I do think there needs to be a caution with, hey, you might be wired towards this thing. Like maybe it's your temper or your, you go after things and the most important thing to you is to get it done. It does not mean that for the rest of your life you will not ever care about people or be compassionate or care. Like,
yeah, it's also not like just a permission card to do whatever you want to do.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just me. I'm just who I am.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Hypothetical guy.
Named Randy. All right. So on the other side of the ledger, on the good scripts, so those are the bad scripts. You can either live in avoidance or idolization. The good scripts, I would use this descriptor that they are helpful, fallible tools. And I think all those words are important. Helpful, like helpful, not like gonna solve every problem in your life. Fallible, like this is not the word of the Lord canonized, like it's not God himself speaking. He can use these tools, but that we have to be very careful when we start to almost like apply a prophetic wrapper over these things. And then tools, it's just a tool. Like it's what it is. And some, as we're going to talk through some of the different ones, they have different ways they come at it. They have different strengths and weaknesses, and then they're not all created equal.
Oh yeah. Man, especially now on the internet,
Yeah.
you can look up all kinds of personality
Mm-hmm.
tests, and I am telling you, it's like going to WebMD with
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
I have
That's so
this,
funny.
like it's not,
I have a hangnail and I think I have cancer.
yeah, well, they call it ihavecancer.com. So just be aware that every tool is different. Their algorithms,
Yeah.
how they do what they do is different. And so as much as I say, they can be helpful tools, there's actually some I am positive can be hurtful. So you should be cautious about just Googling, and I feel like taking a personality test
Yeah.
today. So,
Well, it's also like I think of some of our friends who work in construction and how much their lives have changed since Pinterest became popular.
oh, God.
Where
It's probably like their nightmare, the words they don't want to hear. So I was looking on Pinterest and I was thinking, I know we said that we were going to do this in the kitchen, but yeah, I feel like every contractor is like, oh.
But we can do that with the person, or we kind of just pick and choose. We make our little pin board, that type of thing. And then as I did some research, and we're not here today going to like overthink or deep dive, but like it's good to look into like the origins and the stories behind them. And that's where like I think if we stay at a surface level understanding, it'll be helpful. But some, like just for example, we'll talk about like DISC and Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is actually a very well accepted. I like Myers-Briggs. It's been helpful to me. But that's one that's actually built on more of a theoretical model, whereas DISC is built on an empirical model, which means one, they kind of started with a premise, and it was based on the work of Carl Jung, and they built a sort of a profile around that. Whereas DISC was actually more like they did the other way around, where they kind of did a bunch of research and then deduced through a scientific method. And again, science is not infallible either. So we'd be careful about those kind of things, but just realize that they have different backgrounds and things. So in terms of a word picture, and I've actually taught this, some of the training I've done with young leaders, I'm certified in training with DISC and something called the Golden Profile. And I do find like we use them a lot when I was evaluating church planters and church planting couples. And so we found like really helpful to kind of just give you your imprint, but then we have all those personalities in us that some people just reject them and some embrace them. And I find that's interesting. To help kind of teach about personality profiles, I kind of came up with this idea that it really is like a Polaroid picture. Do you want to explain what a Polaroid is for those?
Shake it like a Polaroid picture. It's still epic, and you can buy these cameras still.
Kind of coming back into trend, though.
Yeah, you take a picture of the Polaroid. The photo actually comes out immediately, but you can't see it yet. You have to. It's processing in that moment. You shake it up, and then you have the picture like within moments. So it's amazing. Way overpriced, but pretty cool.
Like a lot of these tests.
Yes.
So the reason I use the idea of a Polaroid is that first, it's low definition. This is not like 4K, red camera type of stuff. Like it's just like in some ways, like the graininess is sort of like old school kind of a thing. The second thing, and this is really important, it's one dimensional. And then the third thing is it's a moment in time. So low definition, one dimensional, and moment in time. And I think this, if we realize that these tools at their very best are that's still a very helpful thing. Like it's good to have a capture of a moment in time in low definition in one dimension. But if we try to like basically say, this is who I am in every dimension, at every place in time, at all full definition, all the dimensions of me, then I think that we really can misapply these type of tools.
I like that word picture. Look at you doing the word pictures.
Learn from the best.
That works very well for my personality and learning. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I feel like, and this is actually like a little bit of a personality test to do this too, because like this is an area that like I kind of nerd out on a little bit more. So
yeah, I actually love it because one, I appreciate your nerding out, and it's been really entertaining as we've just talked and prepped. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but just the personality test it's been for each of us to talk about our experiences with personality tests. So I'm going to let you kick this off because you have a better memory and filing system for personality tests.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you remember the first time you took something like one of these tools? Was it at college or Bible school?
I think Bible school was the earliest that I can remember. Yeah. And I want to say it was the Myers-Briggs test because the memory that will always stand out to me is I remember the charts, and you were just showing me Myers-Briggs. That's why I'm like, it was jogging my memory. And I remember the E, which was like, it was extrovert or introvert. So essentially I remember like it was a reading of like
a range. Yeah.
Yeah. And when my test results came out, my E was off the chart. Like it just kept going. And the teacher had like made a comment about it. Like, I've literally never seen someone this extroverted. And your brother, who ironically attended the same Bible school that I went to years later, came back to let us know that in that class that he took the same personality test. He's like, they still use you as an example in that class. One time
there was this Bethany Blevins. No one was a higher extrovert than her.
It was essentially like, you're going to take this and it's not going to go. The point isn't that it goes off the chart. It's you're going to be in this range. They're like, unless you're like this girl. It's like, couldn't stay on the chart. And I was like,
can't spend a moment alone, which was basically you in Bible school.
That was me to a T at 17 for sure. So anyway, that was the first one that I remember.
My first one that I remember was in high school. We did like a spiritual gifts analysis, which was sort of like trying to say like, what are the spiritual gifts that you have? And I even remember then like thinking like, in one hand, this is really kind of cool and interesting. Like to think, teenagers are fully part of the body of Christ and like full participants in the kingdom of God and like have spiritual gifts. And then at the same time, the dangerous thing though is to be like, well, like, oh, I'm not really gifted in hospitality. And then to carry that forward and then like not allow God to maybe like, I think in your spiritual gifts, some of them will be through lines and other things will be sort of shaped by the season of life and how God kind of forms you. So
we had this conversation. I can't remember if it was when I was in high school or maybe a little bit older. And it was a group of us talking about spiritual gifts. And I remember someone making the comment that they're like, man, you definitely have the gift of evangelism. And they're like, but I don't have the gift of evangelism. And one of the other people spoke up and they're like, I just want to be clear that all of us are called
Yeah.
to share the gospel. So this idea that you don't share your faith because you don't have the gift of evangelism is a cop-out.
Yeah. Well, there's the Great Commission, which we're all commissioned to do. And that's like, again, with these things, like if we think like they're an excuse to not be kind or to obey God's word or like submit to the things that are infallible, the Holy Spirit. So I was telling you before we started that I have like a Google Drive folder that is full of so many of these different profiles that I've kind of kept track of over the years. And you were saying that in and of itself was a personality test.
Yeah, because I'm trying to rack my brain over what are the results of any of them. And I've done that. I've done ones that cost money. So I have to have the results somewhere, but.
So I guess to use our analogy, like I'm the old lady with the scrapbook and,
Yes.
and you like move and just throw away all your pictures.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So
So
fair enough. I just want to understand.
I'll try and remember as best I can, but it's going to be rough.
So I made an inventory of inventories. All right. So here's some of the personality profiles I've taken. Some of these are the classics, and then there's some deep cuts.
Okay.
All right. B-side. So DISC, which
Yep.
most people know, MBTI, Myers-Briggs. I am an ENTJ, and you are an ESFP
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Similar one to that is the 16 types. StrengthsFinders, which is one of my favorites. I love StrengthsFinders.
I have done that one, but I only remember one of mine.
Yeah. And we'll let you talk about that when it's your
Yeah.
turn.
Oh, sorry.
Just kidding. It's good. Enneagram, which a lot of people know, either love it or hate it. Golden profile. And then some of these I took my seminary when I went into there. They did some ones that were kind of more psychiatric evaluation kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe they thought I was crazy based on what I was writing, but no, they had everybody go through these. So one's called EQI, which is emotional quotient, which is an interesting one. One's called the TKI conflict model.
Okay.
So that one would do well with some of our earlier episodes, how you handle conflict. The CPI, the PEPQI, which when I wrote it on here, I thought it was Pepsi. It's not Pepsi. And then this is kind of an old school one, the 5 love languages.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic. I like that one.
Good old Gary Thomas.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think, for me, I like to look for themes between them. That's why I think having all these tools, you look at the different ones and you can kind of say like, oh, these are kind of commonalities that run between them.
So what were your themes?
Often things around drive, achievement, being very much like the J in, that's actually one that I'm pegged on. The ENTJ in the Myers-Briggs is like the judging versus perceiving. Like I tend to have that kind of analytical approach to things. So that's definitely a piece of it. I do think like I've taken Myers-Briggs at different seasons of life, and I've always typed as an ENTJ. But the E is that spectrum you mentioned of the extrovert to introvert. And when I took it in my early 20s, I was like just barely over the line. Like I could probably take it 10 times and get an E or an I, depending on answering 1 or 2 questions differently. But it's actually changed a lot for me. And now my E is a lot higher, which is an interesting thing to see and change. And that's where I think these Polaroids, that if you can take them over different seasons of life. I love StrengthsFinders. Like I'm strategic, discipline, achiever. Like those are all the words that kind of tend to mark through on me. And then like with DISC, I am an I, which is like the influencing, and then also like the direct. So like those two things in tandem to each other. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I would concur with all of those.
I won't give you a breakdown of all 42 of the different profiles that.
We want to know your psych evaluation.
Yeah. So how about you? What do you remember?
So I do remember the Myers-Briggs when I was in college, and I did take StrengthsFinders when I want to say I did that one when I was on staff at Chapel.
Yep.
But I don't remember all the ones I had. Listening to you list yours, I'm pretty sure none of those were
You've done DISC before. You've kind of done the hits.
Well, no, I mean the results of your StrengthsFinders. Yeah, I did not relate to.
You only remember one.
Yeah, Woo was because I just thought it was hilarious.
What does WOO stand for, though?
Oh, I don't know. I just remember.
Winning others over.
Oh, I don't know. I just thought it was woo woo. I was really excited about it.
Woo!
Woo! Sounds right.
I get an oh yeah and a woo
Yeah. Those are my strengths.
and an atta girl.
It's amazing. Top 3. Which pretty much aligns with, probably the other ones that I can remember. I did like, which Disney princess are you? That was
What did you get?
classic. I want to say I was Rapunzel, which I related to. I have Rapunzel's my girl. That
grew up in a prison.
Yeah, something like that. No, I think there's something about Rapunzel's personality in the Disney movie that came out.
What is Rapunzel's personality? I'm blanking on this one.
Really? I think, well, you haven't
Strong roots?
Yeah. You haven't seen the movie. I think she's funny and she's scrappy and she's very
manipulative.
No. She's got a woo. Atta girl. No, she's just independent. Just, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like the Rapunzel movie was the first Disney movie that came, like this newest Rapunzel movie. When it came out, something turned in the Disney princess world that I really liked. And I saw it again in Frozen and others, just a little different side of Disney princesses.
So you want to bring up the Enneagram and Disney in one
Yes.
episode. That's great.
Yes. I guess I didn't listen on mine, but I've done the Enneagram.
Yep.
So that is one. And then honestly, the one that kind of killed them all for me is I did the which office character are you? And when I came out as Kevin, I was like, personality tests are dumb.
Maybe I should, when I do our budgeting, I should do it in pies.
Yes.
Do you remember that episode where he couldn't do math, but if they asked him to add or subtract number of pies, he could nail it?
Okay.
What would be the equivalency? I'm trying to think of, like, for you, would be equivalent of a pie, because that's not a go-to.
Listen, I get it. Okay. Kevin and I have a lot in common that I don't want to acknowledge. I cried when he spilled his chili in that episode.
That's what he's best known for.
Poor Kevin. But yeah, that's the one I got. So no, I don't remember a lot of the more serious ones. Enneagram is one that I probably have joked about more when I found out I was the enthusiast in the Enneagram. I was like, woo, enthusiast? Yeah, there's a lot. You talk about themes. That's my theme.
Well, that's where, like, when a lot of people do nerd out on things like the Enneagram. To me, again, that's where you see those through lines, because, like, I type as like a 3 achiever. And, I don't get super into all the wings and that's where I think you can get kind of crazy in this thing. It's like, oh, I fit this. But the one thing I will say that I think that going through the Enneagram that they brought up, I don't remember who was first doing the training with it, but that I thought was interesting is that they talk about how there's a healthy version and an unhealthy version of it. And I think that you can apply that, to Myers-Briggs, DISC, whatever. Like, you can use your influence for good or you can use it for bad. Like, in all these things, even your strengths, like, if you are winning others over, like, those people have started a lot of wars in this world.
Well, also the people-pleasing side is not healthy. So we can win people over, but our desire for people to like us and to make people happy can be really detrimental. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's 2 sides to every coin. So
yeah, you mentioned the pegging on the extrovert. Is there anything else that you could think of that has, like, really changed for you?
The extrovert's a huge one. Not that I'm not extroverted. I think the introvert, extrovert, where do you get your energy, right? But I think because in this season of life, my work and everything is around people and putting a lot of energy around people, I find when it's a decision, like, without any expectation on it, what do I want to do? I lean more into quiet moments, and I'm not trying to get into crowds of people. And I actually like being home alone. Like, I come home and it's quiet and they're just like, man, that's my jam, which 17-year-old Bethany, that would have been her nightmare.
You were sharing with me recently that when you first started in the job that you're in now, that initially you were like, I want to be the cool office. Like, I want to have all the snacks and the goodies and all the things. And that you, like, quickly learned, like, no, I don't.
It sounds like such a jerk thing, but no, it was like,
I don't need anything else to, because
yeah,
you have the woo naturally. So it's like, yeah.
well, just the nature of the job is people are going to be coming into your office all the time. Like it's the
Then
kind
you
of
give
work
them another
that,
reason. Yeah.
and I was like, I do not need to make a line outside the door because I have, I don't know, the best snacks or whatever else. There's enough. Yeah, I do think those things, being an extrovert and that's what you said, the snapshot, but I think also seasons of life can impact those sides of your personality. And so,
Yeah. It's like when it comes to marriage or to like a workplace too, like have found, depending on the team that I'm on, it's similar to like, again, to use a simple sports analogy, like if you're playing basketball and you're the shortest person on the team, you're going to play likely a different position or a different skill set. You go and all of a sudden you switch. Like that happened to me in high school. Like I went from playing for a really small public school to playing for a larger private school. Like I went from a team that like nobody could dunk to all 5 of the starters. We had plays for alley-oops, and that wasn't me. Believe me, I've never dunked a basketball in my life, but my role changed significantly based on that, and I had to adapt to it. And so some of these things in your marriage, it's not just like, who is my personality type? It's who am I in relation to this marriage team?
Yeah.
That's an important thing to think about.
yeah. For some reason, you said alley oop, and I was like, I think that was another one of StrengthsFinders. Woo in an alley oop.
I don't think we were taking the same test from each other. So we'll kind of wrap up, and we're going to put a link to this in the show notes. But Jeremy was kind enough to share with us a profile that I had never heard of before. And it does come from Gary Thomas's, speaking of love languages, the same ministry. Yeah, I wrote it down here. It is an apology language profile. And I am definitely not claiming, I don't know the empirical background of this, and I don't even know completely how to interpret it, but I figured like Jeremy shared it. I was like, all right, one more, let's just add it to the list.
We took the test.
And so it gives you 5 different ways that you relate to apologies and kind of a spectrum. So the 5 things that are on there are, do you value making restitution? Do you value expressing regret? Do you value plan change, like saying, this is what I'm going to do differently? Do you value the request for forgiveness? Like, will you forgive me? And do you value the other person accepting responsibility? And so, yeah, so you pegged your highest one was accept responsibility.
Yep.
The second thing for you was plan change.
Mm-hmm.
And then expressing regret, making restitution.
Those were pretty equal for me.
Pretty close, yep. And then the one that was like the lowest by far, so it's 100% total.
Yeah.
So you're like 36% accept responsibility, 24% plan change. So those two are like over 50% for you.
Yeah.
And then you come down 16% both for expressing regret and making restitution, and then only 8% on request for forgiveness.
Which is wild because you're number one. It's my bottom.
Yes. The one you care about the least
It's
is
the
the
one
one that
you care about the
more than
most.
anything else.
Thank you, Jeremy. Now we're fighting. Just kidding.
So my number one is request forgiveness, which
Yep.
you had at 8%. For me, it's 32%. And then accept responsibility, I was 24. So that was actually, so we were closer because that was a high, that was your number one, it was my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Make restitution for you was the 4th one. For me, it was the 3rd. Expressing regret, again, 16% on that. And then plan change, which for you, again, 24%, number 2. Plan change for me, 8%, the lowest one that in terms of values on that. So
I think in terms of our marriage, that might be a low one for you, like when you're thinking about me, because you're like, you don't have a plan. I got zero expectations on you having a plan.
I'd be curious to dive into this deeper, whether like what part of the paradigm is, how you want to apologize or how you want to receive, so that's the dynamic. But what I think has shaped me the most is for me learning how to apologize. I had to learn to ask the sort of like the submission part of it. My personality, I'll jump to the plan. I'll tell you all day, like, no, I got a plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to be like, slow down and be like, no, I just need to name it. I need to just own it without excuse. And I need to just submit in a way that gives you, hey, I'm asking you, will you please forgive me? And so I think that's why mine is skewed the way that it is, perhaps.
Yeah, I could feel that even as I was doing the test. It sort of hit that I think for me, it's honestly, I don't want just someone throwing apologies
Yeah.
at me like, I'm so sorry. But the accepting responsibility, I think, is a value both ways for me. I think probably how I own the stuff, because for me, sometimes apologies where is it an apology? Is just the I'm sorry, but do you even know what you're apologizing for? And so the accepting responsibility is having someone, and you just said it just in terms of your own journey, but hey, so I need to slow down and kind of own what I actually did and acknowledge that, and then ask for forgiveness. And yeah, that's a big one for me, because it's not that I don't want to forgive. It's that I just want to make sure we're both on the same page of what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So,
Yeah, this is a good new Polaroid for us too.
yeah, I did notice in the link there, if people look this up, they have a few other tests that are on there too. So,
Yeah, that's a really good one. And this one's free to take too, which is great. And one other one that I'll put a link in the show notes for, because we have an upcoming episode on rest, and it gives you your rest profile. And this is gonna be really interesting. I'm excited about this episode. There's an incredible woman, Dr. Sandra, who I've gotten to meet through this entrepreneur group, and it looks like she's going to come on and do an interview, and she does training in the workplace and has written about rest. And so that'll be a great conversation. It's been a little bit since we've had an interview, so we'll jump back into that a little bit.
yeah, bring some other voices in here.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah. We didn't even kill each other. We started out great. Must be my woo. I'm so glad I know what that means now. It's embarrassing.
All right. Well, we will be back next week, and love the questions. Like, we've had 2 episodes now in a row where people have written in questions. Please jump on, link in the show notes, write us a question, send us something. You can send us on social media too, on our Instagram or our Facebook. And we would love to know what we could talk about next.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. We'll go take some tests. I want to know which Disney princess you are. So let's get on that.
No. All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye.